What is art therapy? I used to get that question a lot, but now, almost 30 years after becoming an art therapist, art therapy has become much more mainstream. The question has shifted from what it is to how I use it. Art therapy uses the creative process and mediums to communicate and explore aspects where words fall short. While words can explain or assist in processing what emerges during the session, it's the experience with the art form that fosters insight and transformation. In other words, art can sometimes support you with deeper access to past wounds that affect your life in the present. Creative arts therapies include five main types. Art therapy utilizes art materials provided at the therapist's discretion, which may include pencils, paints, clay, collage, or other options. Dance movement therapy, as the name implies, uses dance and movement to explore and interpret the material the client brings to the session. Drama therapy includes acting, performing, and expressing to reach and connect with what the client is working on. Music therapy uses sound, song, melody, instruments, and voice to address clients' needs. Poetry therapy is where the form and sound of the word reach what the left brain languages miss. Writing, speaking, and reflecting are part of this process. There are overlaps, and depending on the practitioner's background, training, and experience, therapists utilize elements from other modalities to address the client's needs. Art therapy is a profession that requires at least a master's level study and training in mental health and psychology, as well as the utilization of art media and creative processes to assist people in coping with various internal and external challenges. In the USA, the profession is governed by the American Art Therapy Association and the American Art Therapy Credentials Board. They establish the standards and requirements to ensure that art therapists meet the necessary educational and practicum hours, as well as fulfill the professional, legal, and ethical criteria needed to practice under the title art therapist, which includes passing an exam. In New York, there is a license called Creative Arts Therapists, or LCAT for short. LCATs must meet the standards set by ATA, the American Art Therapy Association, and ATCB, the Art Therapy Credentials Board, and pass the New York State exam administered by the New York State Education Department. Whew, lots of loops. And in New York, the LCAT is an umbrella for all CATs, creative arts therapists, seeking licensure as a mental health practitioner. And again, these are the five categories that are included: art therapy, dance movement therapy, drama therapy, music therapy, poetry therapy. Now, back to art therapy. What can art therapy help with? Art therapy has many applications, including assisting adults and children with cognitive impairments, improving eye-hand coordination, enhancing decision-making skills, and supporting addiction recovery. In my private practice, I have witnessed adults transitioning from disorganization and scribbles to organization and form. I'm reminded of Catherine, who was an artist. Her work was meant to be expressive, but instead emerged as a muddy haze. She could not find direction in her job or her relationships. She only knew she was angry and confused. And over time, while continuing to create her art in and out of sessions, giving occasional directives, and being her companion on this journey, her work became expressive and clear. Some may ask, is art therapy evidence-based? Yes, art therapy is an evidence-based practice, and multiple research studies have supported its effectiveness for a variety of mental health conditions. Studies include neuroscience connections and that art making affects brain activity and emotional regulation. From the start, Margaret Naumburg, educator and psychoanalyst, considered the mother of art therapy, began to explore the use of art therapy in the 1940s. and published case studies. Adrian Hill, an artist and writer, formalized the term art therapy in 1942 and explored its use in mental health settings. More recently, Teresa Kaimal, an art therapist, professor, and researcher at Drexel University, has conducted studies exploring the effects of art therapy on stress and brain activity. Other university research teams, including those from Drexel University and Indiana University, have also carried out studies. And now, this is how I discovered art therapy. It's a bit of a personal story, but I'm going to share a little bit about this. So I was going to be an artist. I studied art from California to New York, practicing my skills and showing my work. Then I treated myself to a summer visit in Greece. I wanted to see my family, and I fell in love with Greece, and I decided to stay a little bit longer. And then I got a job teaching English, and I found a little apartment with a view of the Acropolis. And once I was settled, I took what was supposed to be a short trip to the island of Chios for a Tai Chi retreat. And while there, I was riding on the back of a moped with a friend when a drunk driver hit us head on. The next thing I knew, I was in a hospital in Athens, surrounded by friends and family. And it took me 2 years to fully recover. And my recovery included physical and art therapy. And I began to use my art in ways I'd not before, and it felt more meaningful to me. After my recovery, I began teaching art at an American university in Greece and acquired an art studio and an apartment near my workplace. And while I loved teaching my students, my interests expanded beyond helping my students with technique and form. My art therapist at the time encouraged me to come to New York City to study art therapy under Art Robbins specifically. That meant coming to Pratt Institute, where they also have a fine arts program. And so I ended up completing my art therapy studies at Pratt and getting a master's in fine arts at Pratt Institute. And after graduation, I found work teaching art to special education students in New York City. At the time, there was no line for art therapy. There was counselor, teacher, art teacher. So I began to teach art K through 12, kindergarten through 12th grade students in the classroom. And I was told I can do art therapy, but I could not call it at that time. So in my classroom of special education students, there was a lot of trauma. And given my accident and my early life experiences and work with traumatized children, specializing in trauma felt like a natural choice when I started my private practice. I quickly devoured trainings that I loved and that provided me with tools to work more effectively with my clients. And the unspoken spirituality that unfolds in an unexpected but happy result of working with trauma became a blessing. I've also allowed myself to embrace my woo that I thought I was supposed to hide as a clinician. So with my Greek art therapist, most sessions were in Greek. And when I came to the US, I found another excellent art therapist who helped me transition back to America and into adulthood. And art does touch those wounds that words cannot. And so now I use the term therapeutic art. Why? Well, let's fast forward to the present, and I'm still an art therapist and I continue to practice. However, when I wear my coaching hat, I run like running courses or workshops, I engage in therapeutic art. And I'll explain a bit about that in a minute, about how I use art therapeutically. So I cannot use the term art therapy here in this coaching space, in this blogging space, in this social media space, because here As an art therapist, it's a licensed profession. If you were my psychotherapy client, you filled out all the forms and lived in a state where I'm licensed, then we could talk. But here at Creative Healing Integration, I am practicing therapeutic art. And what is therapeutic art? Similar to art therapy, therapeutic art utilizes the creative process but does not involve diagnosing, prescribing, billing, or having any contact with the insurance companies, and it does not establish a formal treatment plan. We work out what's needed. So I continue to facilitate a creative learning experience using art materials and draw on the knowledge gained from my training and experience as a therapist, but I'm not limited by the constraints of licensure. Instead, I apply insights from my Mandala certification, interactive guided meditation certification, Reiki certifications, and intuitive coaching certifications, for example. As a therapeutic art guide, I incorporate my intuitive gifts into sessions, allowing spirit to guide my clients and me to go where we need to be and what we need to know through the creative process. I might even include my knowledge of astrology and oracle cards. For so long, I felt a deep connection to the creative process. It's a place I go for sustenance and insight. And over the years, I've learned to facilitate others on this journey, integrating the tools I've gathered as an art and trauma therapist. And it just melts beautifully with the freedom of coaching and that relationship that develops. Using therapeutic art, I'm not a therapist, but a professional walking side by side, respectfully and supportively with you. And the benefits of therapeutic art are that when we make art, research has shown that it reaches many parts of the brain: the visual cortex, the frontal lobe, the amygdala, the medial prefrontal. Without effort, it changes our brain waves into a more relaxed theta, alpha, and gamma state. Those are the waves that start operating. And as we make art, we involve the body. Our thinking slows down, our brain changes, and we shift our state of being. This enhances our brain functioning, nervous system, and feelings. It raises our serotonin levels, which affect our mood. We create new neural pathways of thinking and visual expression, activates our feel-good center in the brain. While making art, we engage those healthy areas of the brain, building and expanding how we think. If done in the presence of a knowledgeable, safe person to help channel whatever may come up, so we do not become overwhelmed, growth happens. Making art is therapeutic, and shifts and realizations happen organically when facilitated in a group or individually. For instance, art helps externalize what's happening inside, which can feel like a huge relief. It's no longer in me, it's out there. And as a guide in these processes, it's my job to hold space out there. And what art techniques are used in a session? Well, there's no limit to which technique. It really depends on the interest and ability of the person in the session. And my recommendation is to start with dry media, pencils, paper, move on to markers, crayons, and move up the art therapy spectrum from dry to wet media, like from paint to clay being at the upper end. And so as a trained art therapist, I'm aware of the techniques, materials, and psychological processes. However, I keep that information in the back of my brain as I work with clients now. Now, I'm more concerned with the gestalt of the person, the whole mind, body, and spirit. Now I'm acting as an intuitive coach who has many tools that she may or may not use that are not beholden to a treatment plan and to guide my clients' needs, at least not in the creative healing integration programs. This is where I bring my knowledge of art and art therapy, my knowledge of EMDR, my knowledge of somatic experience, my knowledge of hypnosis, of Reiki, and Oracle cards to my work, as an example. How to get started with art therapy? With therapeutic art, it's a very fine line, and I really have to be very mindful when I'm making that distinction in my work. So, how to get started with therapeutic art? Well, my offers here are not art therapy. I'm not diagnosing you. I'm not creating a treatment plan that needs to be approved by your insurance company. I am, however, bringing my expertise, my knowledge, and my tools to my work with you. And one of my favorite and effective art modalities is the mandala. And the mandala I practice is based on the Mari. I know I sound a little bit, it just happens that that's an acronym. And Mari stands for Mandala Assessment Research Instrument. It was created by Joan Kellogg, an art therapist who based her work on Carl Jung's use of symbols and colors to create a visual picture of the human psyche. I studied the Mari long ago and now use elements of the work when creating or facilitating mandala making sessions. And I'm uber excited to share that I'm forming a new group. It's called the Mandala Corner. And together, this group, we create art twice a month. The mandala session is 2 hours, and the processing session is also 2 hours. It can be shorter depending on what comes up. And each month we have a new theme. And one session will focus on mandala making, while the other will be dedicated to discussing or creating more art related to our mandalas or thoughts that came up during their creative process. And it's going to be a small group. I think up to 6 for this group for 6 months. And if you want more information, there's much more than this brief summary. And I want you to click on the link. I think it's below, and you can find out more information. You can contact me, and I hope I see you on the other side. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.